Welcome to Pots, Pans, and Pioneers. I've been away for a while and a lot has happened. I've gotten so many emails and so many messages asking me where I am and what's going on. So I haven't wanted to do a video. And I know I need to get back to doing them. I enjoy my YouTube channel. I enjoy just, paying a lineage or building a legacy from what I learned from my grandmother. But my life took a screeching halt when Bill and I started loading up our moving trucks and moving from Hardy to back to Texas. We sold the farm there, and as we were packing up and loading our moving trucks, my phone was blowing up with text messages. My brother was trying to get a hold of me because they needed to do a forced entry on my mother. And for those of you who don't know, I was adopted as an infant, and the woman that I call my mother adopted me as an infant, and she raised me along with the man that she married, who I consider my father, who gave me his last name. So without further confusing the video, I'll just tell you that my brother called and wanted to ask me to initiate a forced entry on my mother. She wasn't answering her cell phone, and she wasn't responsive to any of our family members, which is kind of odd. And she at 84 years old, just 1,000 things could happen. She lived alone in Louisiana, her choice, and despite, any kind of recommendation from family, she didn't want to move. So I went ahead and initiated a forced entry on her. They found her really confused and really disoriented is what the report said. And she was sitting in her chair, but she finally realized what was going on, so she could tell you, all of the life facts for her, like, what her children's names were, what her husband's name was, and where she lived. She was able to cognitively put all that stuff together. So they took her vitals. They did not do a COVID test, which I still find strange. And they left her. And so they did a wellness check the following day. She seemed fine. And so they left, and 2 days later, same thing was happening. She wasn't answering her phone. She was ignoring everybody. She claimed she had lost her cell phone, and it just got to be too much. And so they went, and I ordered them to go back and check on her. I was in the midst of a move from Arkansas to Texas, back home. What I consider home is Texas, and we had multiple situations going on with our move. The movers didn't show up, etc., etc. But my life was, what I know now, is spiraling pretty much out of control. And this is really hard to do, to talk about this again. But what I can tell you is that the second time they went in to check on her, they found her face down on the floor in her bathroom. took her to the hospital, and she was diagnosed with COVID. She had the Delta variant, and at this point I couldn't visit her. I couldn't go see about her. I was in the midst of my move, but not only that, they wouldn't allow it. She was in a very small rural hospital in Louisiana. I have a few stories that the nurses told me. She was very combative. She was very, I know she was scared. And they did let me talk to her by putting the phone up to her ear. And I basically just told her to fight like hell and that I loved her. And which was really hard because my relationship with my mother has always been, it's never been awesome. And that's a different story altogether, but it hasn't always been awesome. And simultaneously, when this is going on, I'm dealing with the fact that my mother is now got COVID and they're going to be putting her on a ventilator, so I've been talking to them about that. Well, not really understanding or knowing the same situation was going on with my sister. 55 years old, she was living in Pearland, Texas. She has one child. He's 38 years old, married. He's got a child, 8 years old, so she's a grandma. She's single and she's living life. And I did not know at the time that my mother had visited my sister had visited my mother. And I now know how all that unraveled, but they gave COVID to each other. And what's shocking is, to me, is a year prior to this, I visited my mother. I had a very tumultuous visit with her, and I wouldn't allow her to touch me or hug me because of COVID. I went to visit her and told her that I would just have to stay on the opposite side of the room. I was there just to see how she was doing and just to, try to make a visit as best as I could. And I didn't have COVID at that time, and so she didn't get it. But I went out of my way to protect my mother from getting COVID. And the fact that she got COVID from my sister is just, it's a lot. Because we all should protect the elderly people in our lives, through all the things that you're supposed to do to protect yourself. And I'm sure my sister did not know. She got COVID, we found out, from a coworker. And her and my mother, and I read all this mostly on my mother's cell phone. Her and my mother went and got tested for COVID. And before my mother knew the results of COVID, she got in her car. You just have to know her. She got in her car and she drove back to Louisiana without my sister knowing. She went to visit my sister. And I guess my sister was at work that day, I'm not sure. But anyway, she went to visit my sister and she got in her car and drove home. And how that played out, I've already told you. But anyway, my sister, not knowing, my sister was also being admitted into the hospital, and they were going to be putting her on a ventilator. She made 2 phone calls, I believe, and she talked to her son and basically told him that she believed she would survive and that she felt that in her heart and that she would, this was going to be the fight of her life. And, because one of the, I think the biggest causes of our relationship with our mother, my sister is my mother's, favorite. I guess parents tend to have favorites. I don't ever think I had a favorite. I love my children both equally, but my mother favored my sister. She was the first baby that my mother adopted. And so she bonded with my mother, and they've been super close, which has always been a point of contention for me because she put my sister above everything and everyone, and it's caused a lot of, pain in my life. But my sister and I had not spoken in about, I want to say like 27 years, something like that. And while I have responsibility to the relationship, so does she. So, and without getting into a lot of details about our relationship, I cared about my sister and I cared about her child, and I obviously if I could do it over again, it would be completely different. But we were raised by a woman who was very, just really, really strong. And anyway, my sister was diagnosed with the same. My mother lived 8 days into her COVID diagnosis, and she had a living will, so I knew that they were not going to be able to, continue her life, and I gave the okay to not put her on go through all the COVID stuff, because they said with her being 84, it would just be so hard on her body and the chances of her survival would be less than 5%. So I didn't want to make my mother suffer at all. And I went and visited her at the funeral home, and I told her that I just didn't want her to suffer in any way, and that I was really sorry. But anyway, simultaneously, my sister was in ICU from August the 5th of this year, 2021, August the 5th, I believe, she went into ICU, and she died 2 days, or they let her go 2 days before her birthday. And my mother went in the hospital on July the 27th, and she died August the 4th. So within about a 30-day span, I've lost, my mother's died, and then my sister dies. And the worst of it all is, for me, not having good relationship with these two people, and then having to go through and start dealing with all of the things. My mother was living alone in Louisiana. She was a micro hoarder, and she had an enormous amount of things. And I've had to spend the last 6 months, seems like, going through all of those things and finding so many things that I never even could imagine that she would have. And then losing my sister and having to help her child deal with that as well. So I've not made videos because, we moved from Arkansas to Texas. So if I just kind of think it through, our life kind of went spiraling out of control. I haven't found a job. And I didn't find a job before leaving Arkansas. So we had no home to go to. There wasn't a way for us to, without a job, be able to get home. We couldn't rent a house. So Bill's parents opened up their home to us, and we did that for a while. And when that stopped working, then we've moved on to an Airbnb, and we're still focused on getting really good paying jobs so that we can find a home. So I've lost my mother, my sister, my job, and then for those of you who have been a part of my channel, our dog Bailey, the end of July, we had to put her down. She had cancer. So I've lost my dog, my mother, my sister, my job, my home. life's been horrible for me, but I know that I'm gonna get it back. So, Christmas is gonna be tough, but the biggest blessing I have is that I have my children here, and I have Bill. So, don't give up hope. Just know I'm gonna come back to YouTube, but I need some time. I'm gonna do my best to come back. I have 2 YouTube channels, so just know I am thinking about that. I do want to come back, and I want to come back, blazing. I really would like to change a lot of things that how I do, and I want to make sure that I have a beautiful kitchen to do videos in. So anyway, if you've been wondering what's happened to me, just know that life has taken a really big turn for me. But Bill and I are together, and we're managing it all together. And I'm getting my life back here. So, if you want to stay around to the end of the video, I'll share some photos and some memories that I have from what's going on. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments. I've got a couple of emails from people asking me about my melanoma that I went through, the skin cancer, and I've done all of my checkups, and I'm fine. I did all the things that they had me do, and so far I'm fine. I got 3 pinched nerves in my neck and my shoulder, which threw out my arm with all the stress that I've undergone. And I now have sciatic nerve pinched, and it causes me to not be able to stand or walk very well. So I've been to an orthopedist, and I'm going to get that taken care of. And I'm also going to be seeking some chiropractic care to see if they can help do decompression on a machine that will help my sciatic. I take stress on my body, unlike some people, and my life's been really stressful. But just know that I'm prayerful and faithful, and I know that this is something I'm supposed to be going through, and this was an assignment I had, and I had no idea it was coming. So with that, I will say I'm thinking about all of y'all, and I wish you all a wonderful holiday, and hug those you love, and spend time with your family, and just know life will eventually get better. Don't give up. Bye, everybody.